Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and as always, before the video starts, I want to use this opportunity to express my eternal gratitude towards those who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal, or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your generosity, so thank you friends, and have a blessed day. Now, today's video I will start with the Avdeevka city, where the Russian offensive continues, with its intensity increasing as days go by. First, let's discuss the situation on the northern flank, where Russian forces were able to significantly advance across these open fields and along these force lines, and captured Ukrainian positions along the artificial lake. This is exactly how much territories Russians were able to acquire within the fighting that took place here for about 2 to 3 days. As you can see, this is a quite big chunk of territory. With it, a lot of forces that had been preoccupied fighting here in this area will be freed to fight elsewhere. This will allow Russians to continue to expand their zone of control around Kamenka, as they will be attacking in the direction of this general Dacha sector from the flanks, front, and rear. With the fall of this area, Russian forces will be able to launch direct attacks in the direction of Avdeevka from this general area. Russians also were able to advance here near these lakes in the general direction of this Dacha sector. And this is exactly how much territories that was. This allowed Russians to establish a foothold here in these forests, which will then allow them to launch more concentrated attacks on Ukrainian positions within the Dacha area. And in case if the Dacha area falls to the Russians, Russian forces will be able to launch direct attacks in the direction of Avdeevka, coke plant, and with attacks from the waste heap that Russians captured months ago, defenders in Avdeevka, coke plant will find themselves overwhelmed by continuous Russian attacks from all possible directions. It is important to note that those recent Russian territorial gains were also acknowledged by pro-Ukrainian sources. For example, on Deep State map, this was the situation of yesterday, and this is the situation of today, with those territories coming under Russian control. From here, let's discuss the situation around Kruta Balka village, which is located here, where Russian forces were able to advance and cut off this road in the obvious attempt to envelop and encircle Ukrainian stronghold located in the filtration center. Here is exactly how much territories Russians were able to acquire within the last 24 hours. This marks the start of the operation of clearing this forest, which of course Ukrainians are using as a natural defensive line against the advancing Russians. The capture of the filtration center may potentially allow Russians to gain more control in this area and significantly increase the probability of this forest being fully captured by the Russians. With its fall, Russians will be able to enter Avdeevka from this sector also. Then let's quickly discuss situation on the southern flank. Here, Ukrainians are continuously and fruitlessly trying to counterattack Russians in attempt to get rid of the bridgehead that Russians recently established within Avdeevka city. However, all of these attacks were repelled by the Russians, and Ukrainians were unable to advance. Most interesting situation is happening within the anti-air stronghold located here in this area. It seems that Ukrainians were able to advance here somewhat and re-enter the stronghold, entrenching themselves in it. Of course, the close proximity of the Cheburashka stronghold allowed the Ukrainians to do so somewhat safely, and currently Russians are counterattacking in attempt to retake those set positions, as well as attacking in the direction of previously mentioned Cheburashka stronghold. On the interesting note, here on this video, you can see a Abrams tank spotted near Avdeevka. What's interesting is that it seems that Ukrainians are using different type of Western tanks on different portions of the front. For example, in Zaporozhye, they used mostly German Leopard tanks. In Kupiansk, they used Swedish equivalent of Leopard tank. And here in Avdeevka, they decided to use Abrams. And finally, we will get to see how exactly will the American tank perform in the Russo-Ukrainian war. At this point in time, not only do I want to know your opinion on the future performance of Abrams tanks here on this portion of the front, but I also want to ask you to consider supporting this video with a like, comment, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, a subscription. Words cannot describe how important those actions are for this channel's growth, so I will be very thankful if you would do that for me. Then let's move to the Pervomaisky village and discuss the situation here. where as a result of successful offensive operations, Russian forces were able to advance in this village as well. And here on this picture, you can see exactly how much territories Russians were able to acquire within the last 24 hours. This recent territorial advance puts Russians in control of about 40% of the village. And of course, as I speak, offensive here continues. Ukrainian sources also reported on those Russian territorial gains. For example, here on this map, you can see the situation of yesterday and the situation of today, with those territories coming in under Russian control. Then from here, let's discuss a situation near the city of Gorlovka, where Russian forces were able to retake some of the vital positions that Ukrainians recently captured. Here on this picture, you can see exactly how much territories that was. So again, it seems that this is a sign of mostly positional style of warfare, and both Russians and Ukrainians are not interested in full-scale operations in this area, at least for the time being. And then from here, let's move to Bakhmut and discuss the situation here. Ukrainian forces, like I reported in my last video, were counterattacking here continuously, and as a result of that, were able to advance and establish a small foothold near the lakes here in this area. However, were immediately counterattacked by the Russians. Result of those counterattacks is still unclear. However, here on this video, we can see Russian bombardments of this general area. This isn't the only place where Ukrainians were trying to counterattack, but is the only place where they were somewhat successful. Ukrainians were also attacking in the direction of currently Russian-controlled trench network system located on the tactical heights to the north of Klishchiivka, as well as attacked Russian footholds within the forests located here. However, it seems they were unable to advance, and all of their attacks were repelled by the Russian forces. Then from here, let's move all the way to Liman front and discuss recent Russian developments in the direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Yampalivka, where Russian forces were able to advance along the open fields and forest lines and capture these territories in the process. This puts Russians at about 1.5 kilometers from the village itself. They were also able to establish foothold in this forest as well, which will allow Russians to advance within it under the cover of the trees. So, generally speaking, we can see how Russians simultaneously advancing in the direction of Yampalivka and Terny, and despite constant Ukrainian counterattacks in attempt to stop the Russians, advance slowly but surely. What's worse is that recently Zelensky decided to fire most capable general Zaluzhny. Interestingly enough, both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian communities found a common ground on the fact that this decision is extremely stupid. Imagine how bad you must mess up if you able to unite pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainians against yourself. This isn't just shooting yourself in the foot, this is simply cutting it off completely. Because Zaluzhny had a lot of influence in the army among commanders and generals, and his firing may spark a domino effect, which can lead to a political crisis in the midst of Russian offensive. History knows a lot of examples in which country is enveloped in internal political struggle while fighting a war. One that I know the best is World War I and the Russian Empire, where political struggles within Russia first destroyed Russia itself and then led to its defeat in the First World War. I believe there are certainly some similarities. So in conclusion, I believe next few months will become vital for Ukraine because due to Zelensky actions, everything can go from bad to worse extremely quickly. Again, if you agree or disagree, please do express your opinions in the comment section. It is there for a reason. With this, I end today's video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day and always remember, Russia will be free and great.